Well, then you have the other engagements. You have things going on in Africa and Kosovo, and you have Taiwan coming up maybe, and you have Armenia and now Israel. So that's how empires
Well,
go.
I think we can put the Taiwan thing to bed. The Chinese are not going to attack Taiwan. They have no interest in attacking Taiwan. That's nonsense. It was always nonsense. And I think the electorate on Taiwan, if given the opportunity, may well vote itself into China. That's what people don't understand. You've always had two parties there. One is pro-Japanese, the other is pro-Beijing. And the pro-Beijing party is strong enough now that that could happen. But there will be no war. The Chinese on the island of Taiwan don't want a war, and neither do the people on the mainland. This is a manufactured boogeyman straight out of Washington. So we ought to set that aside. And there is nothing aggressive about China militarily. They're aggressive economically, they're aggressive financially, but they're not aggressive militarily. Now, as far as Kosovo is concerned, that's a very legitimate concern. Because remember, this is another example of where we intervened, largely because we argued that the Europeans would not do what needed to be done. Of course, there are many people in Great Britain and France and other places that said, maybe we shouldn't do anything. Maybe we should let this sort itself out. We did not do that. So we created what I would call an unsustainable status quo, unsustainable unless you have permanently stationed foreign forces on the ground to maintain this unsustainable status quo. Well, that's not going to last. I think we'll pull out of Kosovo just as we're going to pull out of Bosnia-Herzegovina. It may be that other European forces will do the same eventually, and we'll see what happens. But I'm absolutely certain that what we see today is not the way things will look 10 years from now. The region will decide the outcome, the dynamics in the region. We deform those dynamics temporarily. We did that in Southeast Asia. Everywhere we go, we temporarily deform the natural dynamics, the natural balance of power. And once we leave, the whole thing vanishes. It's sort of like putting your hand in a bucket of water. And while your hand is in the water, you displace the water. You pull it out. Suddenly, it looks as though you were never there. Example, Vietnam. Example, Afghanistan. Example, Iraq. So I think this is the beginning of the end of the so-called American empire. And remember that Americans, the population, no interest in it. No. Americans just don't care what happens beyond their borders. That's the problem. We have too many Americans who have consigned responsibility for our foreign and defense policy to a very well-financed minority that wants to rule the world. And Americans are not really interested. So I think that's the other part of this equation. And if you look at our borders, you look at the invasions that we're sustaining from South America, Central America, from around the world, the developing world. You look at the rise in criminality inside our country, the drugs, the human trafficking. This can't go on.